let me introduce our who I will be interviewing today, Dario Kasarak. So I would like to invite Dario to come to the screen. Hello, Dario. Good to see you again.
Hello.
Dario is a graduate of our Master's in Human Resources Management program. He's a senior HR leader with expertise in compensation, pension and benefits, and a career that spans Asia, Europe, and North America. Currently, he is the managing director, head of talent, analytics, and rewards at CPP Investments. Welcome, Dario. Again, great to have you.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here.
So let's move right into some of these questions. So I think the first thing I'd like to ask you about is just your career path. It's really, I think it's such a puzzle, right? Like a bit ambiguous or a bit fuzzy. How do you get from, our students who are about to graduate, how do you get from there to where you are? How does that happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you. I would say it's probably a combination of a number of things. One is certainly luck. And by what I mean by that is just having been presented with amazing opportunities at the right time. So definitely have to acknowledge that. Also, drive, looking for opportunities and taking some risk, taking chances on things that maybe were a bit of a stretch at a time. And then, again, some luck around being surrounded by people who were my mentors, who were there to support me and help me grow and encourage me and say, yeah, you can probably do that. Or let's try and see what happens, and we're here to support you. So it's a combination of all those things. The one thing maybe I'll share that can illustrate sort of that journey for me, at least, is I had this moment maybe in my early 30s where I thought, okay, what do I want to be when I grow up? Because at that point, up to that point, things were just sort of happening. Like a job would come up and I would apply and I would do well in that role, and then there'd be something else. And I sort of had this pause to say, is this like, what do I want to be doing for the rest of my life? And I had this kind of epiphany, and I don't know if this resonates with you, but I realized like I wasn't going to be some, doctor or astronaut or something, kind of what we maybe imagine as kids being or wanting to do. And I thought, I'm going to stay in HR for the rest of my career. This is going to be how I make my mark professionally. So I'm going to try to be the best HR person I can be. And what would that look like? And it was actually really a moment that clarified things for me. It helped me focus and really think about what are some of those things that I could be doing. And one of those things was going back to school. I had, my undergraduate degree was in economics and business. I kind of got into HR based on, like I said, some luck, opportunity, applying for jobs, looking for different things. But once it became a deliberate choice, I thought I'm going to go back. And that's when I went back to York and did my master's. And that really did help me think about much more broadly across all the different functions in HR and opportunities that the field presents. And it's made me the HR professional that I am today.
That's a great answer. I really love this reflection of, when we're kids, we only see three options, right? Like the teacher, doctor, lawyer, but the world is much, much bigger than that. So that's a wonderful reflection. So I'm just gonna ask one follow-up if I may.
Of course.
When you first started, it sounds like you were looking across a range of possibilities and you ended up in HR, and that's what helped to set your path. How did you get that first job, and what was that first job, and what did it teach you?
Yeah, so maybe a little bit more context. So I was living in the US at the time. I needed a visa, like to be sponsored for a work visa. And I don't know if that's a reality for some of the folks on the call today, but that can limit your options in terms of what you can go for and what you should go for. And I was just looking for work, like many people from undergrad. And the job I got was basically doing sales analytics, so heavily analytical role. And I always had a propensity for sort of structure, and I wasn't afraid of spreadsheets, but I also really liked the interpretive part and a bit of the art part. And so, that was an opportunity that I could, apply for something, get a job. It was, decently paying. It was in the area I wanted to be in. But kind of within a year and a half, I realized it was too much of one thing. It was too much of the spreadsheet and not enough of the other side. And I was having lunch with a friend, and he said, oh, there's this job in compensation benchmarking, which I didn't know what that meant. he said it's kind of like what you do now, but it's about how much people get paid instead of whatever other analytical work you were doing, and you get to really explain it and kind of work through that. And I said, oh great, let's try that out. So that's kind of how I stumbled into the topic of HR. But what I found as I was doing more of that work is that really got me to use both sides of my brain, if I can put it that way. I still am very structured and analytical. That's kind of the foundation. But if anybody who's ever done comp or other anything to do with people, there's an element of psychology and emotion and engagement and explanation that is obviously beyond any spreadsheet. So I loved it, and it was super challenging to have to marry those two components, but it's what's kept me engaged and going on that path for for the last decade and a half plus.
Excellent. Okay, great. Now I want to pick your brain a little bit more about, just based on your experiences, looking towards the future, because I think many of our students on the call are thinking about, what's my best bet? Like, what direction should I go? And HR is pretty big. I think you start to understand once you enter the field. So where do you think we're going? Where do you think HR is going in practice?
Yeah, I love that question because it gives me an opportunity to kind of gush about HR. So I maybe reflect on three things. One is this, I think, is a trend that more and more organizations of various kinds are considering talent as a real central part of their strategy. So a way for them to differentiate themselves, to be competitive, to be innovative, to make a difference, more so than we've seen in the past. And who knows talent better than HR professionals? That is our focus. So that's really promising. And for many years we've talked about HR being at the table from a business perspective and impact. The pandemic has maybe been an example where that human side of things is so important, how organizations are run. We are certainly going through an unprecedented circumstances. So having those skills, those real skills to apply to really complex business problems and help make the organization more successful through that lens is probably more critical now than it's ever been. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. So that's one. The second one is, I think about kind of broader trends in just the world, and environmental, social, and governance issues are becoming more and more central in how many organizations think of themselves and how they engage with the world. And HR has a really strong link to at least two of the three. We think about social and how we engage with community, who we recruit for, how we build environments and professional environments and opportunities for people that are truly inclusive and diverse, and we reflect the populations that we serve, or whatever business we're in, where we operate. That's super critical, and it's not gonna get any less important. Governance has absolutely a component of HR, and from a regulatory perspective, from even just more broadly, things like codes of conduct and culture, that's what makes or breaks organizations of the future. So, from that perspective, again, as HR professionals, we have such a deep understanding of how to bring those pieces together and make sure there's success there. And then the last one, which I've been super excited about, involved with, confused by, challenged by, is this question of the future of work. We're now all on the Zoom call, which a few years back would have not been a way for us to engage. We've had to engage our workforces through almost entirely digitally for many employers, obviously not all, but many. And technology has changed, employment relationship has changed, the nature of work has changed, the location, time. All of these dimensions that were somewhat inflexible in the past or very marginally flexible are now all up for debate. And that's exciting. It's also super disorienting, because a lot of the things we assumed were the way things were done are no longer necessarily holding. And there's some really powerful discussions on that front. I think about there are not many times in history when these kinds of shifts happen. So to be alive and be an adult and see in a function like HR at a time when there's a real opportunity to contribute to that change and make that change hopefully result in something that's better than where we came from, something that creates more opportunity, more equality, more engagement, and a better world, if I can sound somewhat optimistic on this Zoom call, I think it's really powerful and exciting. So why would you want to be in any other function?
No, you know what? I think those comments, they resonate for me. I think you're entirely on point by saying that HR in this moment has the skills, the knowledge, the opportunity to really lead some of the ways in which business responds to the larger social and global issues that we're facing. I share your enthusiasm for.
Thank you, and maybe just to balance that off, the reality is also then it can feel, it's a busy and exhausting time, and we're human, and we're all living through this challenging experience. So as HR professionals, it's felt at times that within our organizations we are kind of the front line. We're the ones helping our colleagues navigate through all these challenges in a really unprecedented way, and that can be a big burden for us, but it's also an opportunity for us to make a mark and build something that's different and better. And I've certainly seen lots of my colleagues take huge pride and huge inspiration from that opportunity.
In the last couple minutes that we have, I want to get down to some advice for our students. So the first one is, as they sharpen their skills and develop their HR knowledge, what are the things that you think are increasingly important for HR professionals in the future, the skills that they need to carry with them?
I'm just going to say I'm biased, obviously, like every human being. So I'm going to share my perspective, but there are obviously others. And we can talk kind of generalist or specialist. There's always kind of that perspective. But one thing that's probably going to hold true across the board is that aspect of an analytical lens. And and not for everybody. It doesn't mean everybody's going to be deep in spreadsheets, but how do we better capture data around talent and then derive insights from that data? Again, it doesn't mean we're all going to be data scientists or spending our days in spreadsheets, but being more comfortable understanding data, asking questions about data, and maybe even building an environment where that information can be captured in a way that actually gives us good insights. I think that, again, that's one of those inevitable futures types of things where that's where it's going. So if I had any advice around, get more comfortable, get some data literacy and exposures, that's going to be a long-term, you'll generate long-term returns on that. I used to joke early on in my career that I built my career on VLOOKUPs and pivot tables. That's kind of outdated technology, and maybe it's table stakes for many, but it's that kind of notion that you should be able to get comfortable with some analytical tools.
And any last words of advice that are something our students can do right now to prepare for their career ahead?
Oh gosh, I'm sure they're doing everything they possibly can. Maybe my just two quick things. One is, the learning doesn't stop, right? You're just gonna go through stages of it. We are all knowledge workers, and what that means is, having that thirst for knowledge, having a growth mindset, is what makes life more interesting. It gets me to do something like this today, which I get to learn from and experience and enjoy. And so if you have that mindset, it continues to be an interesting journey. You just go through this at different stages. And the other one is maybe, for younger folks, maybe coming out of school, this may sound strange, but your career is probably the next 40 years of your life. So if you think about it long-term, and not think about it as a straight line or what do I have to absolutely achieve to be happy forever. That doesn't really exist. It's sort of this journey you're going to be on. The opportunities, the learnings, the failures, all of it is part of the equation. Just try to remember at times when it maybe seems a little bit challenging that time does provide more opportunity and things change, and it's a long trajectory, not to be kind of caught up in the moment. I think that perspective can help you rise above momentary issues or struggles, and actually help you grow through that. That's certainly been my experience, because it's not all smooth sailing. It's not a linear path. There's bumps along the way. There's different stages, I think helping build that perspective will prepare you for the future that's probably going to be just as bumpy, if not bumpier, because the world keeps changing pretty rapidly.
I really appreciate that. So both of those are perspective, right? Like work on how you see your career and how you see things. That resonates for me as an org psychologist, this idea that there's a lot of work to be done just in getting ourselves, so outside of the skills, outside of the planning, just getting ourselves ready for a career. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Dario, for a wonderful interview, for sharing your insights and your perspective. I enjoyed hearing them, and I'm sure our students learned a lot from those comments.